Okay, welcome everybody. This is the Tuesday, April 12th meeting of the Planning, Resource and Development Committee. Call the meeting to order. We have, I think, 4 of the committee members here today. Mr. Kinnear has been excused and it's been excused. So we have a quorum. Approval of the minutes from March 8th.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move approval of the March 8th.
Supervisor Morehouse and Supervisor Bjork seconds. Any questions or changes?
Just a comment. When we made that for the Hughesby, like last time, I just wonder, and we approved it, but I wonder if we got things kind of backwards. The concept plan, because that's all we had. We didn't have an official like survey map. Shouldn't the concept plan, what we talked about, go to the staff and then they say, yep, if this stays there, then it should be okay. And then they bring a certified survey map to us, which is something a little bit more like legalized that we approved. Because last time we just approved a concept or a drawing. Basically, it wasn't like a certified survey map. So I wonder, because that's the idea, was to have a concept plan for the staff, then the citizens would know, well, that won't work, so I'm not gonna like waste the money on a survey, but yes, if you do it like this, it'll be okay. So you go ahead and get the certified survey map with our blessings and then come to the meeting, because then we're okay in something that's certified, something that's more legalized than just a drawing or an idea or a concept. That's just my only
No, I think those are important points. Maybe we could, if it's okay, Gary, we could ask staff to put that on the agenda for a future meeting and have a discussion about that process.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing it up. Anything else?
All in favor, huh?
All in favor, all in favor of approving the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Carries. Okay. Minutes are approved. So do we have any public comments today? No? Okay. I think you'll be in the hearing. Yeah, so no problem there. So then we'll move on to the public hearing today. This is a rezone request from Rosendahl Properties for general commercial to residential. And I'll call the hearing to order. And again, note that we have a quorum. So this is a rezone request. I guess I'll ask staff to confirm that the public notice requirements have been met. And
so the notice was published March 23rd and March 30th, 2022. And I can read that notice if you like. The Dunn County Planning, Resource and Development Committee will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, April 12th at 8:30 a.m. in room 54 at the Dunn County Community Services Building, 3001 US Highway 12 East in Menominee, Wisconsin. The request is for a comprehensive zoning map amendment. The applicant and agent is Rosendahl Properties 9 LLC. As you can see on your screen and in the notice, there's a meets and bounds description for the property. It's also known as Idella Ridge, potentially. The request is, or the applicant, Rosendahl Properties 9 LLC, Menominee, Wisconsin, has made a request to rezone land as described above from general commercial to residential 2. This is the only opportunity to address the county regarding this request, as such interested persons are invited to attend said hearing and be heard. Persons wishing to provide input during public comment may submit written comments via email or may register to speak at the public hearing by sending an email beforehand. Instructions for those wishing to speak during the hearing may be found on the Dunn County website. Persons needing assistance in accessing the meeting, please call 715-231-6505. Maps and supporting documents are on file and available for inspection at the Environmental Services Department, Planning and Zoning Division, located at 3001 US Highway 12 East, Suite 240, Menominee, Wisconsin, or on Dunn County's website.
Okay. Tom, would you like to give your staff report first or hear from the applicant first? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, we'll follow the normal protocol, which is to request calling the applicant to make a presentation of the request. Mr. Rosendahl, before you do that, I have to swear you in.
Okay.
So could you state your name? Yeah, come up to.
Push the right hand button on the bottom. It should light up for you.
One that has like a speaker. Yep. State your name.
I, Robert C. Rosendahl.
And do you promise your testimony today will be truthful in all aspects?
I do.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, we submitted the application to rezone this. It's, as you probably read, and I think Ann maybe shared my application with the committee, but basically we're doing this as a favor to the township. It doesn't matter to me either way. Under current zoning, general commercial, I can build a single family home and I can build a duplex, but it has to be non-owner occupied. So in order to sell a home or a twin home on the same parcel that could be owner occupied, I need to be rezoned to R2. And so that's the purpose of the application.
Okay. And you want to give a review of your staff report? You want to stay there for a minute?
Sure. All right, so he explained it really well. They're basically just looking to rezone a parcel of land from general commercial to residential 2. The parcel size as it is now is approximately 62.5 acres. The current zoning is general commercial and adjacent zoning is general ag and general commercial. He's proposing to develop the 62.5 acre parcel. It's located within the town of Menominee. He'd like to do a 29 lot residential subdivision. It's mostly wooded land. Some of it is used for agriculture. There are mapped wetlands located on the property, and they've been set aside as non-buildable outlots. The PR&D committee did approve the preliminary plat for this development on February 22nd, 2022. The final plat of Idella Ridge meets all requirements of Dunn County ordinances and state statutes. Current zoning of general commercial would allow for non-owner occupied multifamily homes or retail/commercial properties. The Town of Menominee Planning Commission and Town Board have both approved this rezone request. Did I say something?
Okay, Mr. Rosenthal.
I just want to clarify, could you pull the map back up, Tom, please? And maybe it's just a typo error, Ann. We're only asking to rezone these 26 lots. You said 29. And we are not rezoning these. These are remaining commercial. That's the buffer between the two entities. This particular lot is under a special exemption. I believe that's the way it's submitted.
Yes, you're correct. The legal description also excludes those areas. I just put it in there wrong, so I apologize for that.
I'm not sure those 26 lots, sorry.
I would think we could maybe get to this at the end, but the whole parcel itself is 62.5 acres. I don't know the exact acreage of what you're rezoning because I just didn't calculate it.
Okay.
But if you look at the screen here, I have a red star that's the location of the property. Move down. So he already kind of explained that, yes, those lots there are going to stay commercial. Lots, I think 29, 27, 28. I believe, and the rest will be part of the rezone request. So description of the proposed development. Can you go down to the next slide, please? So I'm going to just go over some of the criteria for rezones that we have to cover. Lots 1 through 26 are currently zoned general commercial. They can be used for non-owner occupied single or multifamily homes. By rezoning to R2 as requested, it would allow for owner occupied single or two-family homes. Rezoning is necessary to allow for the construction of these homes. So the zoning districts within the proposal, past and current uses of the subject property, zoning districts and land uses of all property within 1/4 mile of the proposal. So we have general commercial and general ag. So you can see they're red and kind of a greenish yellow on the map. Past and current use of the property is ag. And within 1/4 mile is mostly general commercial and general ag. No new development has occurred in this area that I am aware of, other than some single family homes have been built. The county's future land use map indicates this area as general commercial ag. However, the most recent update to the town of Menominee's preferred land use map indicates this area as general commercial and R2. You can kind of see this bubble area. And then the red star is approximately where Mr. Rosendahl's property is. Dunn County hasn't updated our future land use map yet, but they're working on it. But I believe it's important to note that this is how the town sees this, and this would likely be adopted into county zoning as well. Can you go down to the next? So this map here is the DNR surface water data viewer map. It's just showing approximately some of the wetland areas out here on the kind of near the property. So just as a general assessment, the density, scale, and use of the proposal does fit the neighborhood's development pattern. The proposal is impacted by wetlands, but it is likely that they are outside of most of the development. Some of the wetlands are on the lots. However, this is going to be a less intense use of the property than, say, general commercial, and I feel like this isn't going to negatively impact the wetlands. It's not impacted by floodplain, and it is not impacted by the county's farmland preservation plan. Therefore, staff recommends approval of the rezone request.
Thank you. Yeah. Do you have any further comments, Mr.?
No, other than I would just contribute that this is delineated wetland. This is delineated wetland, and this is delineated wetland. That was all contracted through what's the term, Kevin? There's basically state certified delineator, and so the DNR accepts their findings as gospel. The DNR, in the purpose for pulling our permit, which is in process right now, has asked Cedar Court to take these two ponds and make one large pond. So the physical location of these two ponds will change a little bit, and will remove that off of that lot from a disturbing standpoint.
Okay. Does the committee have any questions or comments?
One question, that lot, just east of lot 29, is that part of your property? There's no, like, lot number, yeah, right down there.
Is that your question?
Yes.
Okay. When, sorry, I thought I was speaking loud enough. When we first purchased the property, we did a CSM, a 2-lot CSM. So it's not showing the CSM number on there, but that's a 4.2 acre CSM lot. So we
Okay.
broke that out immediately. And then we broke out the farmhouse so I could resell the farmhouse at the same time. So the farmhouse, because of the circumstances, fell under a special exemption. So those two parcels were broke out on a 2-lot CSM and recorded, I want to say last November. So that particular lot is slotted for mini warehouses.
Okay,
And then the lots 27, 28, and 29 are slotted to be maxi storages. So basically, that's going to be a warehouse area on 11 acres, about 150,000 square feet total when it's all built out. All of the calculations for stormwater management, all of that stuff have been based on that surface basically being 85% blacktop and roofs. And then the town of Menominee makes you have a 30% green space. We could have circumvented that process some. We are allowed to take basically the whole back half of lots and include like the septic areas and all of that and designate that as green space. We did not do that. We left the lots the way they are, and we have a 15+ acre park that's going to be in there, and that's the buffer between the two entities. But if we wanted to, we could go back and add in green space on all of those lots, and we would be well above the 30% green space. So we feel like we've really been considerate of the neighborhood, the location, the requirements, and all of the minutes and everything would reflect that with the town and everything so far that we have far exceeded what is required to put in a development.
when you take those two wetlands and create like one bigger one, do those two, then can you use that as a buildable area if you'd want to in the future?
No, the wetland itself will stay the same.
Okay,
So those will always be wetland. They'll never be able to be disturbed. It's just you have to have a retention pond for all of the runoff to go to.
okay.
So instead of including that in the particular area where the wetland is, we're creating a separate area.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. If there are no other questions, thank you for the presentation, and we will close the hearing. With the committee's approval and without objection, would it be okay if we move item number 9, which is consideration of the rezone request up to this point in the agenda? I see everyone nodding in agreement, so let's do that. So now we're considering approval of the request as submitted. Is there a motion one way or the other from the committee? Supervisor Bjork moves, Supervisor Anderson seconds. Any further discussion? Okay, then let's vote on the motion. All in favor of the motion to approve the rezone requests, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thanks a lot. Thanks, you guys. Let's see, staff reports, registered, well, let me see, make any sense to. I think these will go pretty, well, let's see.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Does this have to go to the county supervisors also?
Pardon me?
It does?
Yeah.
Okay. Kevin just brought that up. That's news to me as of 10 to 9 on Tuesday morning. Does that just carry forward, Ann? Do you take care of that? Or?
This will go to the county board, yeah,
Okay.
I'm not sure when, do you know, Ann?
It won't be the 19th. That
Be
was
probably the
too quick of a turnaround, so
May meeting, I would guess, yeah.
the next one after.
Well, let's go ahead with the agenda as it is then, and, well, maybe not, let me think. I wasn't thinking about this, sorry, I apologize. Since you're here, why don't we be okay with the committee if we move number 8 up and take action on the final plat? Are you ready for that, Tom?
Sure, that would be
Okay.
fine. Good morning, everyone. So what we have before us here is the final plat of Idella Ridge. We'll just go through some basic information here. So Mr. Rosendahl is proposing to develop a 62.5 acre parcel of land in the town of Menominee. It's mainly going to be a 29 lot mainly residential subdivision. It's located west of 429th Street, about a quarter mile north of US Highway 12. County Highway BB is located along the northerly boundary. Lots 1 through 26 are going to have direct frontage on a street that they're proposing. It's going to be dedicated to the public. Lot 16, if you remember from the preliminary plat, doesn't have any approved direct vehicular access onto BB. So there's going to be an access easement 20-foot wide serving that lot, located along the westerly line of lot 17. The property is currently zoned as general commercial. There's no required minimum lot size. The subject property contains some wooded land, but it's mainly open. In the past, it's been used for ag purposes. There are some mapped wetlands on the property, and the preferred land use according to our county comp plan is farmland. So this committee approved the preliminary plat back on February 22nd. I spoke with Frank Bammert last week, Town of Menominee Chair. On March 8th, the Town of Menominee met and approved the final plat. As of the date of this report, which was last week, and also as of this morning, plat review in Madison. So they're objecting authority on this plat. They have not certified no objection to the plat. The plat was just submitted about a week, 10 days ago to the state. And by statute, they have 30 days in which to review that plat. So I anticipate receiving state certification near the end of this month or early in April, or I'm sorry, early in May. So the final plat that you have in your packet, I feel meets all the requirements of the Dunn County ordinances and state statutes. And I'll just remind the committee that, we did approve the preliminary plat, and if the final comes back in substantially the same form, it is therefore entitled to be approved. So as stated above, we're still waiting on state certification of no objection. So my recommendation this morning to the committee would be a conditional approval of the final plat contingent on receiving that certification from the state. I can go down, show you the final plat. And a copy of this was in your packet. It's in my opinion, in substantially the same form as the preliminary. Of course, there's a lot more technical data now on the final plat that was not included on the preliminary plat. The lots have all remained the same. I'll just zoom in here a little closer, point out a few things. So lot 16 up here is going to have a 20-foot wide access easement coming into it. The main street coming in, dead end cul-de-sac, is going to be dedicated to the public. So it will not be a private road. All the addressing and access points will be off that public street. Mr. Rosendahl, a short time ago, alluded to the location of this pond, if everybody can see that here. At the time of the preliminary, there were actually 2 retention ponds being proposed. Those 2 ponds now have been consolidated into one larger pond. You can see the wetland areas identified on here. And as Mr. Rosendahl stated that, the pond isn't going to change those. The wetland areas are still there. That's how they are mapped, shown on the final plat. Lots 27 through 29, which is going to be this, where the commercial storage is going to be. There's a private access easement coming in, serving those. You can see here where I'm moving my hand. So they'll have access off this private road coming in. Other than that, I don't really have much more to add on the final plat. If the state does have some modifications, my presumption is they're going to be very minor in nature. So obviously, if there's something major or substantive, I can let the committee know that. So at this point, again, I'm recommending conditional approval based on receiving certification from the state. Our 60-day time period is running out. It actually runs out on the 24th of April. Our next tentative meeting is going to be held on April 26th, although that's yet to be determined. So we really need to take action on the plat today to fall within the time limits for review. So that concludes my report. If there's any questions of or by the committee, I can certainly answer them. The project surveyor is here in the back of the room, Dustin LeBlond. Project engineer is here, Kevin Oyam, and of course, Mr. Rosendahl is here. If there's any questions of any of those three. Thank you.
Any questions from the committee? Okay. Could I have a motion one way or the other?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move approval contingent on state certification.
Supervisor Morehouse moves.
Second it.
Supervisor Anderson seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Carries and it's approved. Thank you very much, gentlemen. So we'll go up to number 6, staff reports. It's Heather's report. You have anything to comment on, Heather? Any questions? Okay.
I'm always really
Don't worry.
curious, Heather, about these transfers of $1 million or more. So there were 3 this month. Can you tell us what that is? Or is that too hard?
Thanks for the question. Can you hear me? I didn't actually do any further research. I certainly can. I'm assuming they were commercial properties, but I didn't really do any further research
Okay.
I can easily see the dollar amounts. So I ran those reports, but I didn't actually pull the actual deeds to see what type of a sale it was
Okay.
or who the parties were. But it can be done, so I can certainly look it up for you.
It's not that big a deal. It's just,
It's
I'm
surprising.
always curious about these large transfers.
Yeah.
And, what is this?
Mhm. Yep. The values of property have increased, tremendously. So it's surprising, but yet, some of it can be ag land that, a lot of ag land that is transferred. I mean, commercial properties and sometimes too, it's hard to determine without a little bit more research because the party names involved aren't really it doesn't really indicate the business per se. It could just be a holding company owning the property. So it does take a little bit of research, but it certainly can. You can stop in anytime. We can pull those. It's not that difficult. But.
Supervisor Bjork.
There was one piece of land like just north of John Deere that a friend of mine bought. That's like 2.5 million. Or just like egg land. Just north of John Deere on both sides of 25. But my question, Heather, is the balance in 2020 and 2021 are pretty good. Does that all go back to the general fund? Or does some of it stay in your fund balance or some go to state? You had like $82,000 in 2020 as a balance in 2021, 148,000.
Yep, all goes to the general fund.
Oh,
Mhm.
well, somebody's making money then. Good.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of fees that we collect probably, let's see, we probably keep a third of that and the majority goes to the state. I mean, they're split between the state and county, but yeah, those balances reflected in the report or go to the general fund.
Okay. Thank you.
We can do a couple more miles of road, maybe 2. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Heather. Feel free to get on with your life if you need to.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
before Heather leaves, this is my last meeting. I want to share with you. When I talk to the public and And here, I just want to share with you the respect and how much, what appreciation, a good job that I'm hearing from the public. So I wanted to share that with you, and thank you, Heather.
Survey Division. Anything you want to point out, Tom, or any questions from the committee?
The only thing I would point out is, of course, the weather is changing rapidly. My staff are able to get out in the field a lot more than they have all winter, so looking forward to getting a lot of survey work done before the crops start getting put in the ground and the leaves start coming on the trees. We have about a month and a half window here to do that, so looking forward to that. From being cooped up all winter inside the office. In the last few weeks, I worked with Krista Vind, trying to develop a online fillable form for our applications for our land divisions. We've got that out there. I think it still needs a little bit of tweaking. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better than we had, with the goal of reducing paper and just making things not only more efficient for the land surveyors that have to fill these out, but also on my side of things, when they come in, keeping it more organized, heading more into the digital age and keeping things digitally, electronically versus paper files. So that's something that's been long overdue that that we now have implemented. That's all I really have to add, unless there's any questions.
Any questions? Okay. Thanks, Tom. Planning and zoning, man.
I guess I could add what Tom said. I think our staff is really looking forward to getting out in the field more and just spring weather and getting a lot more done. So that's been good. I guess I don't have anything to add unless anyone has any questions.
Gary.
Hate to do a lot of talking, but I got a call a couple weeks ago about a person near Colfax that a roof went down in 2019 and snow loading that. I think it's in a floodplain. But why would she have to have a zoning permit if she's just repairing a building that the storm took down, the snow load?
So this happened well before I arrived. So I
Okay.
I'm still trying to catch up on this one too. I believe at that time, permits were not pulled and they were found later that they needed to. When you repair a structure that's within floodway, you have to flood-proof the building. So it's just a safety thing, if it were to flood again, it's not causing an issue. What happened was the applicant failed to do the flood proofing, and then we've kind of gone through a battle since that. So
the reason that they needed a zoning application permit was because it was never given in the first place for that building? It's not grandfathered in?
So due to the amount of destruction that happened to the property and the amount of repair that was required, because it kind of went over that threshold, they are required to flood proof the property and get a zoning permit to repair it. And they didn't do that. And that's kind of where the issue came up. Normally, though, I understand, most buildings, if they're, depending on where they are, they're grandfathered in, but when there's substantial damage like that and it's in floodway versus just like flood fringe or outside
So
of
it
the
makes a
floodplain,
difference
it's
if it had been
different.
like a farmland, we had a big shed with the roof went down with snow load.
Yeah,
It wouldn't have like applied then
Right.
basically to fix it. 'Cause
correct.
there were a lot of sheds went down in
Yeah.
2019 with all the snow load,
Yeah,
so.
the issue for this one was just the location in the floodway.
Okay, that's what I want.
Yeah.
That's what I kind of thought, but I wanted
Yeah.
to ask you personally, so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions? I do have one. The comprehensive plan, the plan for the comprehensive plan. We had made a pretty important point in the beginning of that process about offering opportunities for the towns to have input into the plan. And I guess it's not a big deal for discussion right now, but I think the committee, we have reviewed the draft that Cedar Corp prepared. but we haven't really acted on any of it. And we haven't really had, in my opinion, we haven't really had a discussion about any, we just went through it. So you should know that, because I think the committee is going to want to have that review. So when you talk about wrapping up the revisions by Cedar Corp, you need to include an opportunity for the committee to have a real get at the meat of it. And then second is the idea of giving, of providing the towns with an opportunity to have input is pretty important. And so I'm not sure how we do that. We need to think about it in the future. And I think the concern, I heard it from a couple of people, is are we going to just be taking a plan out to the towns and telling them, here's what we've got? Or are we going to offer an opportunity for some kind of a back and forth and consideration?
So just want to be clear that none of this is done. These revisions are not final. These are just what they have put together
I
as
understand
part of
that.
their contract. The intention for meeting with individual towns and municipalities is to hear their opinion and to develop what they want with their towns and to make sure that they're doing their comprehensive plan updates as well, and that we're including them in this process, not that we're fully developing this, then presenting it to them. So we will be working with them.
And the only reason I bring it up is so that it's on the record and people know that that's what your intention is.
Yes, I appreciate that. Absolutely.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman.
yes.
And in fact, the draft was far from complete the last time we looked at it. So even the presentation of data was not complete. So we definitely need to have a look at it. I, for example, had some concerns about sort of the overall observation that this is primarily about agriculture, and that there maybe there needed to be some consideration of other kinds of development issues moving forward. This is a 10-year plan. So we need to look at it again.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ann.
Yeah.
And you will have our support in doing it. Yeah. Okay. And is there, let's see, who's next? Oh, Chase. Yeah. Moi.
I don't really have too much to add of what's in the report, other than appreciate the support given by County Board for the groundwater monitoring program with the use of ARPA funds. So it'll be interesting to see how that moves forward as we move into budgets and things. But regarding that aspect, staff in our office are moving ahead slowly with the development of what that might look like, knowing that we need to get through the budget process and all of that at this point. But we appreciate that. Other than that, I guess if there's any other questions for me.
Any questions for Chase? Okay. Thanks, everybody. And you're back on. Discuss contractor storage yards and general ag zoning.
Okay, so I don't have any visual aids or anything. I didn't bring any materials other than I just kind of wanted to crack this open a little bit more as far as how the committee feels about adding some of these contractor storage provisions to general ag zoning, potentially residential, things like that, or any thoughts or concerns that you might have before I really get too far into presenting maybe a new definition or some other materials to the committee. Right now, they are contractor storage yards are permitted principal and accessory use in commercial and industrial districts, and that's it. They're not permitted anywhere else or even mentioned anywhere else in the ordinance. And we also don't have a definition in our ordinance, and I think it would be really good to get something defined a little bit more clearly about what we see a contractor storage yard as and the locations that we would see those as being appropriate.
Any thoughts, questions?
I don't even know what a contractor storage yard would consist of, and it's so sort of hard to think about this in, certainly in residential, one gets sort of this image that isn't particularly attractive of what that might be. So, yeah, I don't exactly know where to go with this one.
So after doing quite a bit of research about some of the counties that are neighboring to us, mostly in the like western Wisconsin kind of area, and after talking to some of the zoning administrators in those counties, almost all of them have contractor storage yard mentioned in their ordinance. They vary differently. Almost all of them have something that allows for it in, commercial and industrial districts. Some also have it in general ag type zoning. There are some in residential. I know St. Croix County has it in residential areas. Typically, these are done with a special exception permit. So there are conditions attached, screening, fencing, distance from residential structures, things like that. Hours of operation are usually included in there. But I should probably come back to like what I kind of see a contractor storage yard is. I believe that it's used to store and maintain construction or service equipment and other materials. Typically you would see it, say someone is a roofing contractor. They want to come to their shed or their storage area on their property. They want to come there in the morning, they park their car, they load it up with all the materials they need for the day, all the shingles and materials. They go out to the job site and they don't come back again until later in the evening. So they're typically out there 1 or 2 times a day. There isn't work being done on the site. So it's basically just an area to kind of stage for the day, go out, do their work as a contractor and return later in the evening, put everything away, park their truck, go back home. A lot of times it's snow care, snow plowing, tree trimmers, things like that. It's a little bit bigger than say like a home occupation. So that's why I think the special exception permit is a good thing to be required for that. So we can have conditions on there.
Mr. Chairman, but there would be no hazardous waste at all, right? There's got to be some kind of like definition of what could be stored there and what couldn't be. And maybe nice to have a lot of it undercover in a building too, but I don't know if that's possible either, but maybe it get somehow be worked into it.
I think too, that can be typically, we can put in there, we can add things in our ordinance, operational standards, lighting, screening, things like that, that it can be written right into the ordinance that these are the things required for this. No hazardous materials, things like that. So I think that's a really good point.
So right now, we don't have any mention of this in our ordinance.
The only mention is that it's a permitted principal or accessory use in commercial and industrial districts. That's all we have, but we don't have like an actual definition anywhere. So it's pretty open at this point.
Yeah.
And it's also not done by special exception. So we aren't able to apply conditions to these.
So somebody who has a business, they could have a part of their property that was outside
Mhm.
and pretty much do anything they want to with it, as long as it's related to their business in terms of storage, and
That's correct.
that can be that could be a problem or not, but to me, depending upon the situation. So let's say we went ahead with this and we allowed it. One of our intentions was to allow it in general ag. Is that the idea?
Yeah, that was kind of the one that really came up.
In the last,
If you're familiar, if you remember the Ray Whitkey storage situation, the intent of rezoning that property was to bring it to commercial so they could do this kind of storage. But with something like contractor storage, they wouldn't have to rezone, and we could have conditions applied and kind of limit what they're doing with it rather than just opening the doors for everything else in commercial zoning.
and they would have to apply through as a special exception
Mhm.
and meet the requirements. But as it stands now, then this committee would not have any role on that, right?
In the special exception process,
Yeah.
correct. Yeah, but of course, we would be doing all the other parts of
Right,
it, getting it to that point, but I do see that special exception being important as a proposed use.
So I know in the little bit of searching I didn't find very many examples of actual ordinances that are out
Mhm.
there. So we'd be kind of cutting some new ground maybe on this too.
Yeah, and that's something that I could share with the committee too at another meeting is just here's what some of the other ones look like. And maybe, we can pull some of those things and I can kind of put something together that at least I think would fit for us. Kind of get your thoughts on that. But there's quite a few around. They're all pretty similar. There's some big differences as far as like operational standards in some of them, but it's a pretty straightforward use once you get down to it.
So what do you think the plan would be? You would come back to us as you're developing this?
Yeah.
And
If you feel that's appropriate. I don't want to
Yeah, I
take too
think
much
we
of
wanna
your time,
move-
but I
keep
also
move-
really want to have you involved. So
yeah, no, we'd like to move along on this as,
yeah.
so yeah, let's do that. I imagine there are already places in our county that are functioning as contractor storage yards that are not, really would not be allowed if we were, so this could allow us to bring those into compliance too.
Exactly. There are actually a couple that I can think of. I can't remember what town or anything that they're located in, but that they're kind of already doing this. And they didn't see themselves as doing anything
Right.
inappropriate.
No.
I mean, it's a pretty low intensity, not a lot of complaints or anything, but this would allow a lot of people to come into compliance. And it would also help, a lot of people see these as sometimes home occupations, which are allowed in our ordinance through a permit. But this is a little bit more intense and I think needs a little bit more regulation.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. All right, thank you. We're down to number 11, right? Chase, you're on again.
All right, thank you, everyone. In your packet were two resolutions regarding a notice of discharge or notice of intent, as well as a trim or targeted runoff management grants. If you recall, about a year ago, this committee approved two resolutions to go before county board, which was approved by county board for participation in the targeted runoff management grant program. One of those resolutions is the first one on your screen here that authorizes basically my position to apply for these grants and for the county to apply. The difference between this resolution and the one that was presented a year ago is we did not have the notice of intent or discharge grant program as a part of that. So this is in essence, a repeat of that resolution just to clean it up and add in the other grant opportunity. So as far as the agenda item today, 11A, this would be the one before you authorizing us to participate in these grant programs. It allows us to apply for the grants, to install best management practices regarding the targeted runoff management grant program and the notice of intent or discharge. We need to update this in order for the next agenda item for a specific grant application. So if you have any questions regarding this particular resolution, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I would request your approval.
Any questions? Sounds like a good plan. Let's get it. All in favor of want to have a motion to approve this resolution?
So move.
Supervisor Anderson, is there a second? Supervisor Bjork, any discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Motion carries. Second motion, B.
Yep, so the second resolution is a grant application for a notice of intent or discharge grant for a specific farm here in Dunn County, the Gregory Thompson Farm in the town of Wilson. So this resolution authorizes us to apply for such a grant to assist that landowner, that producer in a compliance matter regarding a non-compliance with not only our county ordinance, but also the state administrative code. Currently, that facility has a earth and manure storage structure that has a compromised liner. The structure has overtopped, ultimately discharging to an intermittent stream, which goes to Pine Creek, and Pine Creek discharges to the Red Cedar River. So we have been working with Mr. Thompson for several years to address this, and we've come to a point where, and I should say that Mr. Thompson in this recent year has been very cooperative, and that is actually, there are several options for cost share for individuals, whether that's state funds through our normal bond practices, cost sharing, equip through NRCS or federal dollars, or options like these through targeted runoff management grants or notices of discharge. And Mr. Thompson has elected to go through this process. It affords him the most assistance in the shortest amount of time. But we will be able to obtain a new manure storage structure there to address those runoff issues. So this resolution is basically authorizing us to apply for such a grant to assist that landowner in compliance.
Any questions?
So what is the chances that that grant will be approved? Is it so many from the state, and the state kind of picks the highest priorities? Because I'm sure they're not going to approve all of them. So you're not really sure until you get the final word.
So as an example, if you recall last year when we did this, we had a different farm that we were applying for a targeted runoff management grant for. Those grants are more competitive. They're limited in the amount of funds available as far as a cap per project. And ultimately, we were 4 points shy of being funded on that. It was largely due to the location of the project not being within a TMDL or an impaired waterway, even though we had concerns for groundwater quality. So it just didn't score high enough. In this particular grant application for notice of intent or discharge is an application process that they have batching dates throughout the year, but we can shorten our time frame and expectation of when these grants would be available. So the odds of us getting this grant are much higher. DNR is involved on this project already and has already issued a letter for the notice of discharge, which means that that process has begun. So by June 15th, we will have to get this application submitted. And it is possible that we could already be into construction by the end of, the construction season this year versus waiting a year. With that said, regarding budget impacts, we may, if awarded this grant, we would need to come back here for a budget amendment to bring that money into our account. The process for payment and reimbursement is that the landowner and their lender or whoever is financing them is responsible for paying all of the project costs up front. They submit reimbursement to us. We funnel that through to the state, and then we make a payment and we get reimbursed by the state. So it is whatever the cost ends up being that we settle on, we will be reimbursed 100%. And also unique in this situation is this individual, Mr. Thompson, is applying for economic hardship, which elevates the cost share percentage from 70% up, potentially up to 90%. So as I mentioned earlier, this project or this concerns on this property have been going on for many years and likely way too long. So this is a viable resolution to that, to maintain that farm in its current function, but also in a manner that is protecting the resource as well.
Okay. Could I have a motion to approve the submittal of the application?
Mr. Chairman, I will move approval.
Marissa moves and for Brooke seconds. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, no?
Good job.
Carries. Good job. Hope we can get this done. Be great.
And you will see this at county board at the next meeting on the 19th. I believe Nick's got it on the agenda, so.
Okay. Let's see. I think that's it for our agenda.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
with your approval, I would like just to make a few comments.
yes, and then we have I should say this too, staff has provided some treats in honor of your last meeting, Jim. So after you make your comments, we'll chat for a while.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you all know, this is my last meeting with you. I serve on this committee because I'm chairman, as you know, of the Community Resources and Tourism. Long time ago, it was called the Ag Committee because it was mostly agriculture. And now, of course, it deals with all community resources and, as you know, rural tourism. And the chairman of this committee, Tom Quinn, serves on the CR&T committee. So that's by statutes. And so you will have a new committee member who is the new chairperson appointed at the county board meeting next Tuesday night that will serve on this committee. My comments are, I have a background in agriculture, and so I work closely with Chase. I know quite a bit about land and water conservation, but very little about zoning and planning. I've learned a lot from you, and so I haven't been able to contribute a whole lot there, but I've learned a lot and respect the great job you're doing. And to Chase, I certainly want to say this, you know, one other thing, Mr. Chairman, if I get too long, I am a past president of the Chamber of Commerce, and every year we make appointments for Farm Family of the Year to be honored at the Chamber of Commerce banquet. Now, farm families can't be all just around the city of Menominee like the Chamber of Commerce is for Menominee, but they include all of Dunn County. So every year I go to Chase and I say, give me a recommendation for a farm family that has followed the good conservation practices that we think every farmer should follow. Every farmer that has done an exemplary job of being somebody that the neighbors look up to and saying, that's the way we want to be a good steward of our soil and water. And thank you, Chase. You've always come up with a good name for me. And this year again, I followed up with that and a few other names. And I made the recommendation to the Chamber of Commerce. And that family, I hope, I haven't heard yet, will be the final award winner at the Chamber of Commerce dinner in May. And that family is the family up in the town of Grant, the Deach family. And that family will also be hosting the June Dairy Month breakfast. And so imagine that. Everybody can go up there and have breakfast that morning, the second Saturday in June. And you will be at the farm that has been recognized as a Dunn County Farm Family of the Year. And it's a farm family because it goes way back to that. I knew their grandfather and grandmother of that farm, and they're an awesome family. So Chase, thank you for that great recommendation. And finally, to my fellow supervisors, Diane, Greg. Huh?
That's okay. You're doing good. Keep on going.
And Mike Kinnear, who isn't here, but I saw him last night because I had my final CR&T meeting and Tom was there. And you had to hear me expound a little bit about that time too. But my final comment to all of you is here in Dunn County, I have learned to become more and more appreciative of the staff that we have in Dunn County. And I learned that isn't always true in all counties, but here it is. And so my final word to you is to say, it's been a great pleasure. I wish you continued success. And I know that you will continue to work for the citizens of Dunn County. So with that, I say to all of you, thank you. It's been great to work with you. Thanks, Tom.
Well, Jim, I think I speak for all of us when we, express our appreciation for your service. I think of you as, and I often use you as an example when talking to people, what it's like, what a board member should be like. You've demonstrated your commitment to this community over decades. You live here, it's become your home. You know, you know more people than I could even imagine knowing. And you know more about the community, and your fairness and commitment and just basic decency and good humor is an example of what a county board member and a local politician should be like. And I think we all have only the greatest respect for you. We share your appreciation of the staff. But you're my model for what a board member should be. Thank you very much. So we have snacks, right? What do we got?
Tom, before, his meeting isn't officially done yet, but the announcements and the next
Oh,
meeting,
yeah, okay,
next
yep.
meeting date, we should probably talk about. If you're
Yeah,
okay.
go ahead.
So our next meeting typically would have been on the fourth Tuesday of the month, April 26th, but with the reorganizational meeting happening at county board on the 19th, 1 week before our meeting. I guess at this point, we're not sure what the makeup of the committee is going to be, who's going to be chairing the committee. So I have not sent out a request for agenda items at this point. I guess we'll just put that on hold pending the outcome of the county board meeting on the 19th.
Is that okay with everybody? That's our plan.
Okay.
All right, then we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.